Testing 1, 2. Testing 1, 2. Rumble. Testing 1, 2. Testing 1, 2. YouTube. Testing 1, 2. YouTube. Testing 1, 2. YouTube. Okay, audio is working good on YouTube. We're going to check out. I'm going to check out Rumble real quick. Stand by. Okay, for those that are waiting for me, stand by. I'm having some technical difficulties here on getting on Rumble. Stand by. And everybody, welcome that's coming into the live stream. I'll be with you shortly. Got a lot of interesting information to share tonight. Wow. Okay, so let's go here, see where we're at now. Finally, the information took, so I should be hearing audio here pretty soon on Rumble. Okay, so testing 1, 2, Rumble. Testing 1, 2, Rumble. Okay. Thank you for following this channel, DD. I think it's DD, the first two characters. Welcome everybody here on the Area 111 live stream. This is your host RH coming at you again from the beautiful sunshine state of Florida. Now, I think y'all are going to find this very interesting. Far as the title goes, MAGA class action lawsuit against MSM. Of course, MSM referring to the mainstream media, and two question marks. So there's questions about that I have, and I do believe that if somebody leads a class action lawsuit against the mainstream media, I do believe they will basically they will win. And there's a lot of reasoning behind that. Okay, we've been libel slandered, in my opinion, those of us that have joined MAGA, the MAGA movement, soon as President Trump first came in on the scene, I believe it was in June of 2015, when he threw his hat into the ring to run for president, him and Melania Trump and Trump Towers, when they rode the escalator down. And we became, became known as the supporters of President Trump and Make America Great Again. Okay. Now there's people that want to make America great again that don't like our president, unfortunately, but that's the way it rolls. You know what I mean? That's the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. That's what, at least thank you for caring about your country, our country, and supporting the efforts to make our country great again. And a lot of us have been around a while. We referred that to the good old days. Going back to the good old days, could you imagine a single wage owner family where one of the parents, so I won't be like they call us misogynist, some type of male chauvinist, and all this stuff. But anyways, Let me go back to YouTube now. Welcome those that are coming in the Rumble. So let me check out the house here. But okay, that the class action lawsuit questions I have, who would lead that class action lawsuit? Now, that would be a civil lawsuit. And so would that go about the legal minds out there that have, they're lawyers or they have lawyer friends they could question? Why don't you question this, especially people that they identify ourselves as MAGA, and I'm one of those. But if you think about it, I hate to say like, okay, we're playing victim and all this stuff. No, there's actually libel. There's libel involved in this. And whenever somebody libels you and basically your businesses are attacked and that kind of thing, physically, people are being attacked physically, their business is being attacked, their livelihoods, their financial, you know, um, uh, I didn't see that. Our country's not trash. So, anyways, I didn't catch that in the chat. Let me make sure live chat's on. So, um, okay. So I don't know, Tanya, you're a mod. If you can see that person, I've already banned that person before. So if you can show them out the door, if they're causing trouble. Okay. So, anyways, yeah, we don't put up with personal attacks on this channel. I wouldn't expect anybody to conduct personal attacks on other channels as well. You know, if you have questions or you have maybe disputes about the information that's being shared on this live stream, um, is just go ahead and put the information in the comment section so they stick around after the live stream is over. So I can handle constructive criticism, no problem with that, but just be respectful and polite to everybody when you come into the live stream. I appreciate it. So we we all fought, I don't know, tirelessly, most of us, the moment I knew President Trump or Donald Trump was throwing his hat in the ring back in June of 2015, I immediately switched up with a other Republican. I think my last one was Ben Carson. I was supporting Ben Carson, but I was worried about Ben Carson's, um, experience as being a president and understanding the president's background, like I do, and I did back then, like I do now. I understand he's involved in construction and financial, basically, what do you call that? Making the art of the deal, writing books and that kind of thing. And I thought he was the one we needed. And we listened. I listened to him being on a guest on like like Oprah Winfrey. There's a comedian, I forgot his name right now. I just can't think of it. David Letterman, okay, was another one, and he was on. I think he was on. Let's see, Barbara Waters show a couple times, and I remember Oprah Winfrey asking about him considering the run for president. And I think he made a statement. Well, if I run, I'm going to win. Kind of something to that effect. I remember that, but he didn't really want to run for president. A lot of y'all remember that in his statements before he actually ran the first time and threw his hat in the ring on June of 2015. But his remarks he made about us being ripped off, far as ripped off from foreign countries, and all that kind of thing made sense to me. And protecting our country, of course, that really his popularity really skyrocketed once he basically came in and said, "Well, one of my campaign promises is to secure our border." And basically, we could not continue on with that border the way it was, And of course, that was the 44th administration under Barack Obama and Joe Biden. And then look what happened in the third administration of Biden. That was basically what it was. Everybody knew that Barack Obama was running the show, and Biden was out there on the beach most of the time, or Camp David playing video games or whatever he enjoyed for entertainment, you know. So, anyways, it's a long history of MAGA, and we're just tired, especially people have been around a while. We're conservative, we're Christians, we don't like how we are basically being treated as second-class citizens in many cases, and how we are lied about over and over and over again. A lot of that comes from, and I've covered this many times on this live stream channel, about the Special Activity Center Political Action Group, and far as the political action groups influencing elections. Not only now, if you go to Special Activity Center, if you just do a quick Google search, pay attention to a lot of things, the terminology, like campaign terminology, like organizing for action, campaign organizers, whatever. We know where that those campaign-like slogans came from. You know what I mean? A lot of them came from Barack Obama's campaign, and he was a community organizer before he ran for office in Chicago, Illinois. Okay, so campaign organizer. Okay, that means organizing to get the funding and get their own ideologues in office, whatever. So, anyways, I'm trying not to get a longer summary than what I need to give a background on this. Now, those of us that call the good old days, I remember where I was a little kid. I actually was in kindergarten. I had another kindergarten student actually walk me from my front door, cross the street. We had to push she pushed the. We took turn pushing it sometimes, pushing the crosswalk button, so the light would turn red so we can cross the street safely to get to a kindergarten. Now, you think about that nowadays with what's going on. It was safe for me as a small child to actually walk to a not only the kindergarten back then, and being escorted by a young friend of mine she was the same age I was. We went to high school together in Florida, and I won't get too involved in personal stuff, but yeah, my mother trusted my neighbor, my friend, to help walk me to kindergarten every morning. We had to go, and she made sure that either I pushed the light before we crossed the street, or she pushed the light before I crossed the street, and we got to kindergarten safely. Now, in a different area in Florida, I went to elementary school, and from my house to the elementary school was about, maybe, if I lollygagged, maybe 5 minutes walk, if that. Now, I could walk across the street then in kindergarten. Elementary school. I'm sorry. Elementary school. I could walk safely to an elementary school which is only like maybe 5 minutes at most from my front doorstep to get inside the class before the bell rang. And I remember going to the park, the playground at the park at the junior high school and the elementary school. I could go to the park and whatever, play sandlot, or play baseball, sandlot baseball, or whatever, and that kind of thing. We never had to worry about being snatched up off the street by someone crazy, or someone's plural crazy, right? We never had to worry about that thing. And there was a kind of like a unwritten law that, we, as soon as the street lights came on, we had to be home, right? And if you notice the street lights, some of them, not all of them, they wouldn't turn on until they wouldn't turn on right at dark. I mean, dark was, dark. They were on before, so we had a little heads up to get home before, it actually got dark. So, anyways, now if I go by, I haven't been by the kindergarten I was talking about where my neighbor helped walk me to kindergarten, and she either pushed the button to stop for the stoplight to turn red so we can cross the street safely, where I did. I haven't seen that kindergarten. I know exactly where it is. I haven't seen that in years and years and years. So I'm talking years. But the other, my elementary school, my junior high school, that's what it was called. It wasn't called middle school back then. It's called junior high school. And then we went on from there to Chamberlain. I went to Chamberlain. Okay, so I went to Forest Hills Elementary School. I can divulge that. That's fine. Okay. Um, Adams Junior High and the Chamberlain High School in Tampa, Florida. That's where I graduated at 17 years old. And at 17, I went right into the Air Force with my parents' signature. But anyways, if you go by and you look at Forest Hills Elementary School in Tampa today, it looks like a concentration camp. It looks like a high security prison. I mean, we're talking about huge fences. You got a gate you have to go in, to be, I guess you have to go through a metal detector now. And it looks horrible, horrible. The only fence I remember seeing was when I was in junior high school, and which is right next door to Forest Hills Elementary School. The only fence I saw them put up was a fence beside, hey, Michelle, good to see you, 911. Michelle, I'm sorry, I didn't see it pop up on the screen. So welcome everybody here. Let me look at let me see, I'm running a little bit different tonight. Yeah, I think the country was great. It depends on how old you are and the circumstances. No, I actually lived um the American dream, as they call it, and I was very fortunate, more so than a lot of other people. I understand that, but I think our country was great. Okay, I'm going to try to concentrate on the live stream, but yeah, y'all have just make sure you're respectful and don't conduct any personal attacks on this channel, and we'll get along just fine. Now, everybody's got a right to their opinion, of course, but anyways, I've heard that statement made before, and it doesn't bother me. People have a right to believe whatever they want to believe. But I'm just talking about when I grew up as a kid, you know what I mean? And we're talking 6.5 decades ago. You know what I mean? That's a long time ago. I'm talking like in the 50s and early 60s is what I'm talking about. Of course, I wasn't born in the 50s, but I know about it. I have family members, of course, that were born before the 50s. And back then, I mean, one wage earner could actually support the entire family. And I really value our mom staying home, right? Making sure that we're off the school and making sure we have a good, three meals or whatever, or the meals that we eat when we're home or that we don't eat at school, right? But I remember being, my mom packing a lunch for me, and I remember eating her lunch, and I always liked them. I mean, I had never complained about anything she put in my lunchbox. But anyways, I'm talking as a kid, But I remember my dad at that time, he made enough money to basically support the entire family, where my mom could stay home, right? And we had a decent car in the driveway. We had a block home, 3-bedroom block home, kind of like a ranch style home. And I was only like 5 minutes from school. I could walk to school in 5 minutes. And like I said, if you go by um, Forest Hills Elementary School today in Tampa, you go by Adams Junior High School, which might be called Adams Middle School now. I don't know what it's called now. Or you go by Chamberlain. They look literally like um, high security prisons with all the, like, even I think there's even concertina wire now. And I was getting into when I went to school there was no fences like that. I mean, the halls were open. Every now and then you get some riffraff, but the principal or the dean or whatever, or the coach would, basically run them off the property or call the police and they'd be hauled away, whatever. That only happened a few times as I remember. One time it happened in high school, but anyways, yeah, if you go by Forest Hills Elementary School, you go by Adams Middle School or Chamberlain, they look like high security prisons. And what I was going to say about when I was going to junior high school, they didn't have a fence up, but there was a fence that they put up because I did this myself. I was chasing a soccer ball, I believe it was, and there was an embankment that led down to the road. This road from I don't know the direction, but it's either to the left or right, depending on where you're looking from the track. And I think we had a soccer field in there. We were playing around with soccer, and somebody kicked the ball and it rolled out into the road, and I ran to try to get it before it got into the road because I didn't want the soccer ball to be messed up or whatever if a car hit it. And I didn't realize there was an embankment. And I literally slid down that embankment and ended up right in front of this car. And they stopped, thank God, and I was able to get the soccer ball, and they went till I crossed back across the road. Right after that, it's kind of funny. I don't know if it was because of the situation that I had went through, where it wasn't that close, but it was close enough. Yeah, we got to do something. So they put a tall, like it was like a 10-foot high, maybe a 12-foot high fence from along that road at the top of that embankment where you won't get caught sliding down. That's literally happened. I slid down that embankment and slid actually into the road. So that was the only fence I saw, and that was at Adams Middle School or Adams Junior High School. Now there's fences all the way around it. I'm pretty sure, especially where you go into school. There's like checkpoints, like military type checkpoints you go through, in the elementary school, the junior high school, and the high school. So, anyways, thank you for bearing with me. But so, anyways, so I'm trying to keep an eye on the chat the best I can. So if you come in and I don't basically respond to your chat, appreciate you, Tanya, for being here, though. One of the original mods on the channel. So we've been at it, Tanya, for about at least 2 years now, going on maybe 3 years now. If you can recall that. So, anyways, yeah. So while Trump was campaigning, when he first got in basically the campaign mode back in June of 2015, I noticed something similar to what I experienced in my career in the Air Force, a little over 21 years. I noticed the psychological warfare operation. I noticed that it was tied with the MSM, okay? Tied to them directly. I noticed the propaganda. And there's many other mega platforms out there, whatever, that share the montages of the scripts these individuals were reading. And it basically all had the same narrative about MAGA. We were racist, right? They libeled us saying we're racist without even knowing, most of us. They called us basically Nazis without knowing, the majority of us. They called us, the majority of us, fascist without knowing, the majority of us. They called us, well, remember the Hillary Clinton basket full of deplorables, the xenophobes, the homophobes, and all this other stuff without even knowing, the majority of us. So that all played into the propaganda SOPS operation against the United States of America, and basically directly impacting people that supported Make America Great Again and or American First again. It was basically a financial attack, a personal attack, libel, slanderous, defamation, you name it. Now, to compile all that together, we have to understand we already have evidence of this happening over and over again. And what happened was, in 2014, the Biden administration, during their second term, they basically altered or modified the Smith-Mundt Act, where they legalized the use of state-run propaganda, which basically destroyed our free press. That's what it did. I saw one of these journalists, so-called journalists or reporters, in the Oval Office. I think it was yesterday. They're giving out the Kennedy Awards to like Roger Stallone. What's the name? Sylvester Stallone, Sly, as President Trump called them. The Kiss guys, the Kiss band, and I can't remember the country music singer, but anyways, there was. It wasn't during. Wait a minute. It wasn't during that one, but it was another Oval Office press conference, or where Trump allowed the press in, and they talked about, well, that's their free speech, and President Trump basically broke it down. Well, that's not actually free speech, because from your outlet, I can't remember which mainstream media outlet it was, 97% of everything you covered, as far as President Trump was concerned, was negative. 97%. of just negative, nonstop reporting, and like President Trump says, fake news. So when you hear all that stuff going over and over again, and people sitting in front of their by the millions, and they're listening to mainstream media, they come to conclusion, well, we're basically people that belong to MAGA are basically the enemies of their political party or what they personally believe and or their ideologies. Now, they personally believe we are the enemy, especially conservatives and Christian conservatives. You know, I won't go down that rabbit hole any further than what I have, but based on President Trump's basically detailed information about 97%, and he said this in the Oval Office, and I think it was possibly yesterday. I think it was yesterday, and that was YouTube. That was on YouTube. The press conference was shared on YouTube, so I think it might be from the White House YouTube account. So, anyways, he broke it down. He had the percentage amounts of the negative media coverage, and most of it being just all out libel, slander. And President Trump talked about the defamation lawsuits that he won and these major media, mainstream media outlets. Okay, and I won't go into all of that, but y'all know that as well as I do, unless you don't cover this at all. Yeah, it might be about 4 years. But thank you for sticking in there tonight. I didn't realize that we had well, like I said, there's a lot of disgruntled people out there, and they haven't had a fair shake on life and that kind of thing. I can understand that. I've been there. I've been poor. I mean, I've seen kind of both sides of the spectrum. I was able to live the American dream, and I was very poor, far from the American dream. Uh, I won't go into all the personal stuff about that, but anyways, so President Trump basically identified that one news outlet, mainstream media outlet, that's 97% negative, and he mentioned one that was like 94, 95. So all that stuff was negative. It was basically to get people to turn against MAGA so the president wouldn't have any support. There would be enough heat, if you will, violence, lawlessness, directed defamation, um, uh, there's misprison. Now, I don't think misprison is the proper term. Lawfare and this kind of thing. Lawfare against those of us that just supported the president. Now, J6 is a prime example of that. J6 was a prime example of that. The people, the majority of, I think a large percentage of America still doesn't know the truth about J6. And now this is just my opinion. They just supposedly caught, as far as it's alleged, the suspect was caught. It's a male. I think his name is Brian Cole Jr., if I'm not mistaken. Now, people like that could be driven to do things that they wouldn't normally do, especially if they're on some type of psychotropic drugs or something that would basically compel them to do something that a normal-minded person would not do. But anyways, yeah, so you think about all the derogatory, basically, information they're spewing out their mouths every single day. They kind of toned it down a little bit after these lawsuits, but, you know, I really believe that if we had support, now some of that, I think in a class action lawsuit, some of it would be against the government because it was coming out. Remember, I was going to go into the Biden second term when they altered the Smith-Mundt Act in 2014 to basically run state-run propaganda in the mainstream media. So now we know follow the money, right? We know follow the money, the black budget, they're funding those scripts to be read because it's part of the psychological warfare operation that DARPA created to run against ISIS, the terrorist organization. That's what it was designed for. They turned the tool of psychological warfare against the American people. Now, all this stuff is proven. It's like low-hanging fruit. Now, I don't mind to be one of the main plaintiffs in that lawsuit because, you know, I'm just kind of like put it in these terms. Conservatives, and for the most part, I mean, most conservatives are, or those that are of faith that believe in God, right? We don't like trouble. We discern when there's going to be trouble. We stay away from trouble. We keep our family safe. And, you know, we're mindful of the trouble that they start. And I'll just use one example. A certain domestic terrorist organization was basically setting up checkpoints on our roads, and basically people stopped at the checkpoint. They were armed checkpoints at the road on our roads in our country, and they're basically trying to extort or whatever, strike fear in the hearts of those that they stop to try to basically get every penny out of their wallet or whatever, or their dollar they had on them, and basically so they can leave. They can have access to that road. I don't know if y'all remember that, but it didn't. I don't think it had the coverage it deserved. But that's an example. So you create the problem, right, by falsely accusing "Make America Great Again" and or American First members in derogatory terms with a psychological warfare operation that was made by DARPA to issue the propaganda. And they legalized the use of state-run propaganda in 2014, which basically destroyed our free press. The free press, hey Tracy, good to see you here. Appreciate it. Our free press was basically destroyed. And that's how they got through that. That's how they got through it. That was all part. See, they thought they had it in the bag in 2016, right? They thought Hillary Clinton was going to win. When she didn't win, legitimately did not win, because she was basically, my opinion, this is my opinion, I hate to say it, but she was kind of lazy, or she had some medical issues that she couldn't go out there on the campaign trail. If she just went and campaigned more, or maybe even just half as much as Donald Trump did in 2016, she would have probably won. And could you imagine where we'd be now? And they're going to say, just like that journalist said in the Oval Office to President Trump about free speech. And that's when President Trump went into the details about their so-called free speech. He provided some of them, like 97% negative coverage, but he won in a massive landslide. Over 2,000 counties he won versus like around 5,000. No, over 2,000 counties Trump won versus Biden's or Harris's. I don't even remember who ran now. It's crazy. I guess it was Biden, right? Biden only won 500 counties. And if you bring up the results in 2024 of the presidential election 2024, look at that map. Look at the map of our country. Over 2,000 counties, voted for President Trump and Make America Great Again and or America First again. Or they just love President Trump and they don't want to get involved in Make America Great Again. They had a lot of other things like large families to deal with and they just didn't have the time. That's fine too. You did your civic duty. You went out there. You got informed enough to know, hey, a lot of this stuff they're throwing out there in the wind from the MSM is just totally fabricated lies, libel, slander, defamation, you name it. So this went on for years before Trump even won the election, and people were being physically attacked on the streets of our country, just going out there to go, for example, go to a Trump rally. Going to a Trump rally. People screaming this profanity when they have their kids because they wanted the kids to basically be part of this movement we still have, and shouting vulgar profanity at children, and while children were there, spitting on people, all that was fueled up by the psychological warfare operation. And so I really do believe the defamation, the libel, slander, the outright lies about MAGA and about Trump, President Trump himself. Now, he can take care of himself because he's wealthy enough to do that. But think about all of us. A lot of us can't afford a lawyer. Think about if the shoe was on the other foot and they ran a psyops up against the other side. You got people like Norm Eisen, the guy that's basically conducting the lawfare against the Trump administration, against President Trump and anybody pretty much associated with Trump, right? Think about the lawfare they'd have against us. We would have never even got it off the ground. And why were they successful? Why were they so successful? It's because they had the whole media behind them. They have now, this is RH's opinion. You had enough corrupt members in our judicial branch of government, in our executive branch of government, and our legislative branch of government. You had enough corrupt individuals in our own government, from the federal government all the way down to the state government, all the way down to the local government, like city and county, governments. There's enough corrupt people in all three branches of our government is the reason that they got away with it. Because they talk about their free speech and all this stuff right now, right? They talk about their free speech. They can no. You have responsibilities when it comes to free speech. You just can't go out there and libel anybody you feel like it, because you just don't like them. I talk about an individual. No, I won't even get into that tonight. That's an entirely different live stream. But again, President Trump could basically lead that, but I do believe they're going to have to select a new defendant for MAGA and America First from the group, right? Especially one that would be one of the most damaged. And I'm gonna tie this in. This is very important to understand, especially for people who never heard this information before in their life. On October 17th of 2019, CNN put out a an article, which was really a Moody study from top-level economists, titled, Democrats Need to Sharpen Their Attacks on the Trump Economy. Okay? Democrats need to sharpen their attacks on the Trump economy. That was done through the state-run propaganda media, the mainstream media, for the most part, of other people that are basically working for the intelligence community. It's not just the U.S. intelligence community. We're talking about the international intelligence community. Okay? They basically declared, okay, so October 17th of 2019, you can look it up for yourself. Please, that's one of our main sources right there. Democrats need to sharpen, let's repeat that word, sharpen their attacks on the Trump economy. That was an effort that was all tied in together. It was a political and, let's just say, political attack on our country. Now, what does Article 4, Section 4 of our Constitution state? I'll have it memorized. The United States shall guarantee to each state and union a Republican form of government and ensure against invasion and against domestic violence. So let's go back to the statement, or that article the CNN put out. You can Google it yourself. It was actually a Moody study from top-level economists. Democrats need to sharpen their attacks on the Trump economy. That's to drive his numbers down by attacking who? Who is Trump's economy? As president of the United States at the time, President Trump's economy was the United States of America's economy for every 50 state, not just for the Democrat states, but they are basically conducting a precision, fine-tuned attack on anyone supporting President Trump, which included Make America Great Again supporters and America First Again supporters. That was their target. How were they going to sharpen their attacks against the Trump economy? Sharpen, the word means they were already attacking Trump's economy. That's what they were going after. Setting up those unfair trade deals and all that stuff that Trump had to negotiate through. They did all of that stuff, unfair trade deals, all of that to basically, and those other countries that we're talking about, that was part of that community, they obliged. Why? Because a lot of that money came to them from our black budget, from the American taxpayer. We were funding our own coup against those that we supported to be elected, not selected by them. So, October 17, 2019, Democrats, CNN put out that article, which was a Moody study from top-level economists. Democrats need to sharpen their attacks against the Trump economy. The very next day, they told us how they're going to do that. How are they going to do that? Well, on October 18, 2019, they ran Event 201, global pandemic exercise based on the new coronavirus. The very next day, who was part of that exercise? The former deputy director of the CIA, Avril Haines, and she was also the former deputy national security advisor under Susan Rice, under Joe Biden, and under Barack Obama. When she was the deputy director of the CIA, she worked for John Brennan, for Joe Biden, and President Obama. In that exercise, Avril Haines was there. She was at the time the senior campaign advisor for Joe Biden's 2020 election. Sitting right next to her was the Communist Chinese Party CDC director, Center Disease Control Director, George Fu Gao. George Fu Gao sat right next to Avril Haines. He sat to her right. Okay, knowing what she knew, knowing what she knew already. Because they were running an exercise for it. It's like the sim over live operations that RH talks about every now and then. Sometimes quite often. As far as my opinions go. Let me go over to Rumble real quick and check on Rumble. Believe me, this is going to get better, I think, and we need divine intervention, right? We need seriously divine intervention in my opinion. Without God, we can't do this. We can't do this alone. What's going on with this? I have to refresh Rumble, so there's nobody there. Rumble. Now, for y'all out there that are hearing me, that have listened to this channel before on YouTube, that are on YouTube, how's the audio tonight? Now, I do have a new headset, a new mic. So how's the audio tonight? And again, I'm trying really hard to make this a live stream and not a live scream like I had before. Like, when I get passionate about certain things, because I can't see why people can't see this. In a way, I can. When I reflect back to my professional career in the United States Air Force, I had a job to do. I had a mission. We were responsible for completing our mission. I didn't have time for all this research and everything like I do now. So go back to YouTube. So there's only me, myself, and I over on Rumble, I think. Let me get this slide stream up to where I left off at. Okay, so now I know, bear with me, those that have heard this on this channel before, there's going to be some new content that I haven't gotten into yet tonight, but it's very important for me to leave it out. Okay, I'm going to try to get it as short as possible. So I know a lot of people don't have 2, 3, or 4 hours time to listen to a live stream. Got a lot of stuff to do, right? So anyways, let's just recap what the information I've already put out. October 17, 2019, CNN put out a Moody study. Democrats need to sharpen their tax on the Trump economy. Okay? That was sharpened. They were going after our economy, making it even worse for us, and making it where Trump's favorability numbers would basically tank and go down in the lower 30s. Now think about that. in and of itself, as far as the class action lawsuit. The media was behind it, lockstep. Now go look at the lockstep operation in South America, and that's not what I'm talking about, but people need to be informed about that as well. Operation Lockstep, South America. Now, so Democrats need to sharpen their attacks on the Trump economy. So they were already attacking our economy, the U.S. economy. How were they going to do that? Well, the very next day at Event 201, global pandemic exercise based on the new coronavirus, held on October 18th, 2019, they shut down our economy under Trump's watch. And they continue their attacks on MAGA and Make America Get First Again. They were targeting our businesses. They were personally targeting our businesses, our jobs. A lot of us lost their jobs. Remember, they made the mandates. You got to do this or do that. You lose your job. You're out of here. Remember that? Okay, what did the U.S. Senate investigation conclude as far as that jab is concerned? It didn't help you from getting it, and it didn't help you from spreading it. They defunded those jabs in the national, what do you call it? National Defense Authorization Act. They defunded the jabs, the mandate jabs, in the National Defense Authorization Act. The U.S. Senate did that. It's not just coming out of RH's mouth that he's just making things up as he goes along. These things have already happened. It's clear as a bell to me. It's clear as a bell to me. I hope I help make it clear as a bell to y'all for what they've done to us. And they need to be held accountable so it never happens again. And one of those things they need to do is reverse those amendments to the Smith-Mundt Act and reverse that state-run propaganda against the American people. Because, yeah, they can claim, okay, they have an excuse, they're going to run it against other countries, whatever, but they're operating covertly on our soil. They're using foreign operatives to work covertly on our soil. They're basically using foreign operatives outside of our country in foreign countries running their psychological warfare propaganda and reading their scripts, just like we are over here. Because they all have one common objective: to enrich themselves at our expense, the American taxpayer, the hardworking American taxpayer's expense. So without those unfair trade deals as far as auto industry goes, that auto industry should have started lowering their prices. So I don't know how many people noticed or not in the news that President Trump saying we're being overcharged by our own American auto manufacturers. And he basically going to set some policies up that those prices start to come down, right, to more affordable numbers. Okay, so let me clean this up so people can understand the full idea of what they've done here. The reason why we need a class action lawsuit as far as RH's opinion. MAGA class action lawsuit against all these people involved in these attacks. Okay, recap real quick. October 17th, 2019, CNN put out a article which was really a Moody study from top-level economists. Democrats need to sharpen their attacks on the Trump economy. Just because, you can't blame it on politics. If you break the law in our country, you can't go, well, I'm a Democrat. We don't care who you are. You broke the law, you need to be held accountable, like the rest of us. The very next day, they told us how they're going to do it with Event 201 global pandemic exercise based on the new coronavirus. And you got their subverted officials out there going, oh, it wasn't created over there in the lab or whatever, and all this stuff. Hey, fine, you can have that opinion if you want to. You're right to that opinion. Well, what about the WIV, for example? Their own, what do you call it? Online medical information. I forgot what they call it. Under the title of research, coronavirus research. Go look and see what they created in the lab. They basically altered a chimera, I think it was, they call it. I forgot the name of that cell that they infected, which could infect human cells, HeLa cells, right? They could infect HeLa cells with that virus that they cooked up in that lab. Well, I get another tone in my ear now. Well, I must be going into forbidden territory here. They basically, you can call it gain of function. I'm not a scientist or medical guy, but if you go to WIV's own medical online journal, they talk about the research, coronavirus research. Go read it for yourselves. Don't listen to what RH says or anybody else says. Go listen to what they achieved in that lab, the WIV lab. So all of that just is wiped out. Why? Because RH talks about it. It's got to be somebody else that talks about it. Well, RH can read. Let's see if we can. Let's go. Let's do this. I'll do this for everybody right here. Remember, Democrats need to sharpen their attacks on the Trump economy. That was October 17, 2019. The very next day, October 18, 2019, they held Event 201 global pandemic exercise based on a new coronavirus. That's how they're going to tank our economy. Okay, I'm going to open up the source reference of that place I was talking about, and those people have only ones they can blame is don't blame RH. You shouldn't have put it out there. Let me see if they took it down. Okay, WIV. I'm here. It's Wikipedia, I'm pretty sure. Oh, they have updated their website. Let me click on research here. Now, when you go there, You get the Wuhan Institute of Virology. They have updated their website, okay, under the tab research. Now that happened when they did that. I think it was 2015. Wow, they got it's broken down to go to the right year. Well, I'm going to find the original. I don't think this is the Wikipedia version. Let me see. I think I was on the wrong. Okay, here I found it. Now, there, I don't want to, we owe you an explanation. I don't want to read that. Okay. I'm going to go down to the WIV, which is Wuhan Institute of Virology. This, this is a theory. Okay. We can't prove anything right now, right? They talk about conspiracy theories. Okay. Now I'm going to go to coronavirus research. This goes back to 2005. A group including researchers from the Wuhan Institute of Virology published research into the origins of the SARS coronavirus. They found China's horseshoe bats have a lot of SARS-like coronaviruses. Scientists took samples from thousands of horseshoe bat locations across China and found over 300 bat coronaviruses. Now, remember, one of the major participants in Event 201, the CCP, Communist Chinese Party, Center of Disease Control Director George Fugao, who sat right next to Avril Haines. In 2015, an international team, including 2 scientists from the Institute, made a hybrid virus combining a bat coronavirus with a SARS virus. The SARS virus had been changed to grow in mice and copy human disease. The hybrid virus was able to infect human cells. Okay, so I won't go into it any further than that. These are facts after research, and many other people have researched this as well as myself. It's nothing new. So they want to obfuscate or send us in a different direction, right? Because it was a joint operation. Remember, international scientists, including 2 from our institute. Okay, so that gives people a road to go down as far as research goes. Okay, go back to YouTube here again. So how's the audio, people? The people are still hearing, listening in? How's audio? Five by five? Okay, so they used the virus. Thank you, Tracy. They used the virus to do what? To sharpen their attacks on our economy. That's basically what they used. And they shut down what? What was their target? Was their target international companies, corporations? Was their target global corporations, international companies or businesses? that work with NGOs. No, those wasn't attacked. Those wasn't attacked. Let's say it again. Those companies weren't attacked. Matter of fact, you think about far as the big pharma is concerned, they made quite a bit of money during the global pandemic, didn't they? They made buku dollars, right? Billions and billions and billions of dollars, right? What about the big box stores? They made quite a bit too, right? What about the let's see, what's another one I noticed? If y'all can name other, Amazon. I never saw so many Amazon Prime type of vehicles out on the street. Think about it. Amazon Prime. Okay, social media, because people had to stay home, right? They needed, you have, I'm not saying they're part of it, but they reap the benefits of people having to stay home, right? You couldn't go, you were basically were isolated, quarantined in our own homes for a while. Remember that? And Trump tried to get us out of that. 15 days to stop the spread. And for all the evidence I've heard, basically from that Senate investigation, far as that the jabs, they conducted what they called, this is from a senator's own words, they conducted a bait and switch in the DOD, right? You know who was being interviewed when that basically comment was made during that Senate investigation behind the efficacy and to prevent it and from spreading it, right? They accused the former Secretary of Defense of a bait and switch. And that's what they did, in my opinion, they did to our president. They basically said that this thing was, proven, that's great, whatever. And the president's already came out and said, why don't you go out there and tell the world what you told me? So why don't you, President Trump, why don't you go out there and tell the world what they told you about how great they were? It might help some of your base from your base. There's a lot of people based on that alone that have stopped following or supporting the current president. I'm not calling for anyone to do that, but I'm letting people know the background behind it. Just like they sold other drugs of Fauci. There's rumors about that, right? Allegations about Fauci. Remember all those? So why the big cover up? In my opinion, why the big cover up? We already have this. They've already gone out there and bragged about it themselves. They even wrote articles how they saved the democracy by doing what in 2021? But doing what in 2020? We got hindsight perfect vision. Look at all those, was 1,200 people they threw into the DC gulags or sent them somewhere else, put them in solitary confinement. What do you think happened to their businesses? What do you think happened to their financial their livelihoods? During COVID, they were targeting independent mom and pop stores. There's no way, and they already knew this. Democrats need to sharpen their attacks on the Trump economy. They had a playbook. They had who they were going to attack as far as our economy goes. independent mom and pop stores. Does that ring a bell? Shutting down live streams, conservative live streams, destroying the livelihoods of those that were monetized before. They had an operation playbook they went by. So, anyways, and look at Trump's economy directly, how it affected him personally. The frivolous lawsuits, the defamation, libel against President of the United States. They had this set up a long time. I think when Trump was going out there on with Oprah Winfrey, David Letterman, he was out there in the public eye a few times, and it talked about him thinking about running for president, and his statements. They thought they had the smoking gun already on Trump, and they already had it locked and loaded, right? They had the Me Too stuff going on. Remember what they did to Kavanaugh, Gorsuch, and all the rest? What they did to Trump? By the way, that Access Hollywood so-called open mic, wait a minute. How can you have an open mic and an open video at the same time? No. Who was the guy interviewing Trump in that interview? The Access Hollywood. That was the former CIA director, George Herbert Walker Bush's nephew. Think about that. I guess Billy Bush was George Herbert Walker Bush was Billy Bush's great uncle or great uncle. I don't know. I can't remember which. But that was his nephew. Quinky Dink? I don't even want to use that term anymore because it's not original from RH. Just go by the normal standard term. Coincidence that they allow you to touch them there once you're a celebrity. That was a true statement, whether we like that statement or not. What did Melania Trump do with it? Oh, that's just typical boy talk, locker room talk. I don't agree with it, but that's boys will be boys. And she played it off, and she didn't get bothered with it at all. They touched you there, actually, I'm not going to spell it out or anything. You know what? They had all the smoking guns. They're going to run the lawfare before even they're going to run it and defame the guy before he even got a chance, really. And they're doing that every chance they got. But he was so popular, and he worked his butt off. As far as his work ethics are concerned, that guy has more energy than 20-year-olds. And I hate to say it, he's got more energy than myself. And I'd like to know, besides food and that kind of thing, what is that guy taking? That's legal. I want some of it too. Is there some type of vitamins or something? President Trump ought to open up once he gets out this time, or get Donald Jr. to open up, or one of his other kids, or Eric, or Tiffany, or Ivanka, or Jared, his stepson, open up their own health food store, whatever they're giving to Trump. I think I need to try it. What do y'all think? What do y'all think? I mean, how would you like to be? I mean, I really personally wouldn't like to be jet setting all over the world, and I like to have my feet on the ground, grounded on the ground, grounding myself, right? And doing like 5 or 6 rallies a day, and sometimes horrible weather. You know, I mean, the guys like that little ever ready bunny, that they wind up near the holidays, and it keeps going and going and going while all the other ones tucker out, you know. Had nothing to do with Tucker Carlson. I just thought that was kind of tucker out. I remember that expression. So, anyways, yes. I'm trying to look at some of the names here. There's a few that were new. To go back to Iceland. Oh man, hey, Icy, I'm a stoner. He didn't tell. I just noticed you're from Iceland. You know, Iceland should have really been called Greenland. I don't know what your thoughts are on this. Then, as far as Greenland being called Iceland because of actually that's the way it is. I guess there's more green in Iceland than there is in Greenland. I've never been to both either one. I could have been sent to Reykjavik, I think it was, and Iceland. I believe I could have been sent there, part of working for NORAD, and I could have been sent to Greenland. But I have to remember that base. It's still there though. Um, Greenland. What's the name of that base? Thule, Greenland. I think that's it. I think we had NORAD had a job for me to do in Thule, Greenland. I didn't go there. Oh, what about that? The earthquake in Alaska. They got like a 7 point, 7 on the Richter scale earthquake. That's pretty large. And I heard Oregon was preparing for possible tsunamis. That's the last thing I saw before I started the live stream, before I started trying to put it together. So, anyways, now remember, President Trump has talked a little bit about specifics as far as the negative press coverage of him. And remember, that was all set up before he even got in office. So, you know, there was probably people, insiders in the community, the IC community, that already knew they're probably already conducting surveillance on him. And they probably have done this before. They probably opened up a warrant on him before because they made some certain types of accusations. I know David Letterman made a sort of a accusation I don't think President Donald Trump at the time liked at all. And it kind of like he kind of separated himself from that kind of thing, real quick. But anyways, so I do believe that there would be a good shot if there was a MAGA class action and America First class action lawsuit against the mainstream media for what they've done. And think about it, gaslighting these individuals, right? And reading off the same scripts, not actually going and doing a real investigation like an investigative journalist does to find the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help us God, or so help them God, we hope too as well. They basically ran with the scripts. And in my opinion, they're being paid through the black budget to read those identical scripts. Okay, if you change out a couple words, it's still the same thing. They all got the same scripts to read. They might, even though they changed a few words here and there, and we've already seen the montages put out live where we can hear them and see them with our own eyes. So it's not like we're just making stuff up as we go along, right? So now, what are they doing? What are they still doing as far as their psychological warfare operation? They're falsely accusing Trump of doing exactly what they've done. Remember, Trump, they're insinuating that Trump is putting out unlawful orders, right? And telling people not to follow unlawful orders, right? No, we know what they're doing. They're trying to get in the head of people thinking that in the military, and we already found out that as soon as those 6 came out there, that senator and those other individuals that were from the intel community, senator, intel community, whatever, they put out that psychological warfare video for mainstream media to basically flood the zone with, right? And they talked about flooding the zone with Event 201. If you want to go watch and listen about Flood the Zone, remember, this was all set up in advance to select who they wanted to be in the Oval Office to basically overthrow the United States of America by overthrowing our government, our Republican form of government, which is basically constitutional according to Article 4, Section 4 of the United States Constitution. Our Republican form of government is supposed to be guaranteed to each of us, and they tried to overthrow it and criminally obstruct anyone that tried to hold them accountable. Throwing falsely in prison. What about Tina Peters? Is she still in that prison cell? Over a year now, right? For what? Preserving the data? Doing her job? Make sure they were free and fair? Has she been released yet? Look at all the false indictments they set up with Trump. All the false indictments. People still believe that garbage. You know, I don't know what the deal is, but I'm thinking that the ones that actually could get the ball in motion to hold these individuals accountable, they probably are afraid there's so many people that are corrupt in our government now that if they actually started holding them all accountable, we'd lose maybe 40 or 50% of our government. Now, I want to talk about this, the payoffs. Okay, here's a source reference. Y'all can take the bank with you. Now, I just heard Senator Kennedy, U.S. Republican Senator Kennedy, I think he's from, was it Kentucky or Tennessee? One of those 2 states, I forgot. But anyways, so you got the mainstream media out there covering for him, right? I don't want to read Snopes. Wow, they changed it out with a Snopes. Wow, they changed this out. They're saying it's allegations, right? They're the Snopes guy. I wonder if that was David Mickelson that basically. Let me see. Larke Christensen, that might be his son. Remember, David Christensen, I believe, was the founder of Snopes, far left. And man, they're spinning. They're spinning right up again now. They're spinning up again. No, I'm not paying for your garbage. How are they going to get Obama in for a third term? Go just look at David Mickelson's not Christensen, David Mickelson's columns he put out there. If you vote for Biden, you're actually voting for Obama. Basically, going through the vice president. Obama's vice president, that goes all the way back to 2008. They did another update in 2020. They did another update in, I think, 2024. They changed things around a little bit. But anyways, yeah, 2024, right. They did another update basically saying Obama could get in there again using the vice president, whether they select his vice president so he can be the real president. That's exactly what they did. That's why they used the auto pen. We already have that information, right? Wow, they changed. Hold on a second. So during Biden's final days, okay, this was put out there May 27th of 2025. $93 billion energy loan scandal during Biden's financial days exposed. They were just, in my opinion, RH's opinion, they money laundered nearly $93 billion to these businesses and corporations that didn't even, a lot of them didn't even have financials, or all of them didn't have financials. They just money laundered all $93 billion. And Senator Kennedy was interviewing the director of the Department of Energy. I guess that's the title he has. But the Biden administration rushed $93 billion in loans from the Energy Department in the final 76 days, doubling past 15 years totals. Loans were approved with no business plans under the previous administration, prompting calls for investigations into misuse of taxpayer funding. And they couldn't even verify that these were actual businesses that they were sending a lot of that $93 billion to. Remember, this is our U.S. tax dollars that they're stealing, right? Senator John Kennedy condemns shoveling funds as stealing and urges accountability for waste. The Trump administration vows to cut bureaucracy, root out fraud, and tighten federal spending controls. A jaw-dropping $33 billion in taxpayer-funded loans was rushed through the Department of Energy in the final 76 days of Joe Biden's presidency, with Energy Secretary Chris Wright testifying such funds lacked proper oversight, business plans, or even proof of financial viability. The controversial loans, twice as much as awarded in the prior 15 years combined, have ignited bipartisan fury over what critics call an audacious end of tenure bailout binge. Senator John Kennedy he's a Republican from Louisiana, not senator from Kentucky or Tennessee. who grilled Wright during a Senate hearing, called the spree disgusting, comparing the taxpayer dollars to ditch water and accusing Biden officials of shoving money out the door to unqualified recipients. The loans approved under the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act funded projects ranging from renewable energy to grid resilience efforts, but many lacked basic due diligence. Okay, I like to bring to people's memory uh, what they did with the when Biden got in on his first term on January 20th of uh, 2021. Remember, remember the border wall material just sitting there, rusting and everything. Remember what they did with the congressional allocated funds to finish up that border wall. Remember what they did to them during a Senate subcommittee hearing. A GSA supervisor was questioned what they did with all that money because they had enough money. Remember, they were actually welding the gates to the walls, to the wall, the border wall. They welded them shut. No, open. They welded them open for people to come in during the invasion. Now, now we're going to get into the really the real reason why I'm here about these unlawful orders. Okay, but I want to basically finish this up. Senator John Kennedy, Republican of Louisiana, who grilled Wright during a Senate hearing, called the spree disgusting, comparing the tax dollars to ditch water and accusing Biden officials of shoving money out the door to unqualified recipients. The loans approved under the Infrastructure Investment and Job Act funded projects ranging from renewable energy to grid resilience efforts, but many lack basic due diligence. Okay, so when that GSA supervisor was questioned, well, what did you do with that? Like it was like $1 billion of congressionally allocated funds to finish that border wall and to basically with the material that was already bought, right? The wall was there, the fences were there, whatever you call it, right? All the materials were there to finish that wall up, and it was congressionally allocated. Well, pretty much the moment that Biden got in office, they diverted that constitutional congressional appropriation to finish up that law to environmental restoration. Environmental restoration. So, in my opinion, they just money laundered all this money to their buddies, right? Environmental restoration, right? So they just money laundered it back into their, in my opinion, back into their own pockets. Based on this source reference here that I just provided out, where did I get this from? News Target. The title of it from News Target website, 93 billion B, 93 B energy loan scandal during Biden's final days exposed. $93 billion. And we need to get to the bottom of who stole that money that was supposed to finish up that wall. Okay, so now we're going to get into the meat and potatoes of this live stream. So, in my opinion, this is the reason why that infamous six, as they are maybe called now, from the left, led by, was his name Kelly? Let me read off their names. The six. Is it Mark Kelly? Captain, Navy captain, I believe he was. I thought he was Air Force. I don't know. I could be wrong. A captain in the Navy is actually an 06, so not an 03. Captain like in the Air Force. That's false information. Please fact check me. Okay, remember now they are doing exactly what they have done. They're falsely accusing Trump and the Trump administration and those that are basically doing their jobs in our military of doing what the previous administrations have done, right? See, they are basically forcing people that I believe are on our side to be reactive instead of proactive. So I'm not going to go in and read that illegal orders video. It's what they did. Now this is damage control. They want us back on our heels, or people that we elect into office. They want us back, those people back on their heels to be reactive instead of proactive. You know, and they're slow rolling the appointments of trust. I think there's still like 4,000 people that need to be appointed by the Senate. They're slow rolling every single one of them with their lawfare. That's criminal obstruction, by the way. Now we need to start calling things what they are. So remember the New Yorker article? They're going to start an effing war, spelled out all. Remember General Milley? Remember General Milley took it upon himself to basically tell the other Joint Chiefs to basically report to him before January 6th if Donald Trump had ordered boots on the ground. And everything would go through him first, and he would decide to the other Joint Chiefs whether that order was lawful or not. This is the same coup. This is the same broader criminal conspiracy to take down our government, take down the United States, our Republican form of government, and replacing it with a socialist, Marxist, communist type a government. Remember, Article 4, Section 4 of the United States Constitution guarantees to each state and union a Republican form of government and ensures against invasion and against. So that's the justification for Donald Trump using the military on the streets of our country. Those are not unlawful orders based on Article 4, Section 4. Now, what is unlawful order? To basically facilitate orders that were put together during the invasion and the foreign military and terrorist insurgency into our country. That's what they've already done. Upwards of around 20 million people they brought into our country. They didn't even vet. Those officers that were complying with that order to fly in people that wasn't even vetted properly and have them stay on U.S. military bases until they were diverted to National Democratic Redistricting Committee's orders. That was who's behind it.
First it was Acorn, then it was Organizing for Action, then it went to National Democratic Redistricting Committee. That's where they funneled everything through. Those unlawful orders, they used unlawful orders to facilitate and direct an invasion into our country, which included a foreign military and terrorist insurgency. That's what they've done. That's why they're trying to get out in front of the cart, whatever, of their gravy train before it's spoiled, right? And to eliminate any obstacles on the ground. Because these people are caught. They've committed treason on our country for their own personal financial interest, and just because some of them hate our country so much that they want to see it fall. And they're getting foreign aid for that help to try to make that happen. That's the reason why they're coming out with this. So remember, General Milley, you can go read this. Remember that national defense information? And now they don't talk about it anymore because they were caught, like deer caught in the headlights, whatever. You're going to see, all I have to do is type in you, right? YOU, and it comes up. Basically, this is what Donald Trump, I believe, was reading when he pulled that out in Bedminster and started reading that. And they said, remember, that's part of the psychological warfare operation. Using our own tax dollars to take our country down. Or remake it in the image and likeness of themselves. A lot of it having to do with what we've learned and was warned about as far as Sodom and Gomorrah. That was as an example of what not to do. Okay, the New Yorker magazine, this is where you can find it online. You're going to have a effing war. Mark Milley's fight to stop Trump from striking Iran. Well, I hope they got some. You know how they set up all this surveillance on President Trump? You know, the last time that General Mark Milley, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, spoke with President Donald Trump was on January 3rd of 2021. They already had an operation to go, right? He'll explain the operation. See, and they put out these terms, Trump trying to overturn the outcome of the elections, and he was going to make sure that didn't happen, right? He was going to make sure that Donald Trump did not put boots on the ground on January 6th or the day before January 6th to have them ready so they can basically, you know what, complete the crime. When that executive order 13848, when did that executive order, that report come out from the ODNI? Was it 45 days after the election, which would have been around December 18th? When did they put out that report against the orders of the President of the United States? The day after they certified. The day after they certified. So remember, they caught this guy Brian Cole, right, Jr.? Okay, so this is starting to lead me in the direction of my hypothesis, which is a well-educated opinion based on the education I got as far as all the research that I obtained from all the research. Plan A was to ensure that Donald Trump did not have the National Guard troops to help secure the Capitol so they can basically set up the insurrection, right? So Donald Trump can never hold office again. That's why they opened up the double steel doors on the east side of the Capitol. They motioned people to come into the Capitol so they could stop that proceeding. That was the real insurrection. They stopped the proceeding. They had to evacuate out that separate House and Senate chambers. And what did they do, in my opinion, after they were evacuated out the separate House and Senate chambers in the Capitol building? They used the Brad Raffensperger subversion letter to basically change the objection status of U.S. senators and to basically subvert Mike Pence's official duties as the president of the Senate of the proceedings, along with Nancy Pelosi. They set it all up. They refused 2 or 3 days before January 6th to the offer of President Trump to basically use about 10 to 20,000 National Guard troops to adequately secure the Capitol building on J6. So they already had a coup just in case this step wasn't pulled off. They were going to remove President Trump from office if they actually did an objective, what was it, five U.S. senators from each side of the aisle, whatever, and 5 from the House of Representatives on each side of the aisle. And I forgot what else. If they did that objective evaluation and basically did an official investigation, and collected all the evidence that it already obtained already, right? And basically order an investigation, an impartial investigation. They blocked that from happening. They said that Donald Trump, working with the with the mainstream media, they all said he was trying to overturn the outcome of the election. No, he wasn't. He was going to overturn the fraudulent outcome of the election before they got their guy in office. That's what he was doing. So they were ready to remove President Trump out of office by force. By force. That was the real insurrection. And they made sure that Donald Trump could not use those troops on the ground to secure the Capitol so the objectors could read their objection status. Kelly Loeffler, who was the first objector to change our objection status from certifying the election because of the information reserved? Georgia, U.S. Senator Kelly Loeffler. She changed her objection status. Did Arizona House of Representative Congressman change his objection status? No, he didn't. That's when they started to basically, that's when the chaos began at the Capitol.